Hello everyone and welcome for today's video with Innovative Academy, and my name is Yagnesh and I'll be your instructor. In today's video we will be talking about Linux user and group management, and also we will talk about Linux file permissions. Now, to talk about users and groups, now everybody know why do we need a user in an operating system, and why user groups are needed to manage the resources which are related to something like separated from another group resources. Like, now there are in Linux there are three types of users. The type 1 is the administrator, or you can call supreme user, that is root user account. And now then you have custom users. Custom users are like a created users with normal permission by root user, and system users. Now system users are the users which will be created when some of the services and applications are installed, like your VSFTPD, FTP, or HTTP, which is Apache. When you install and configure these applications on your operating system, there will be a user created to manage these services, and without interrupting the administrator for everything. So there will be a separate system users created to manage their own services. As I said, an example, FTP and HTTP and SSH. So these are the good examples I can take in the beginning of this training program. Now, the root user will have the UID as 0, and GID will be set for 0. Now, what is UID and GID? It's like an universal identifier, and that's a group identifier. It's like an ID number for a user. Now, back in rel 6, this is going to implement in Red Hat Enterprise Linux 6 operating system. The custom users UID and GID used to start from 500. Now within 500, which is 1 to 499, will be reserved for the system users, or something like a reserved user IDs. You cannot use those user IDs. Starting from 500, you can use it for the custom users. As I said, this is the 500 is for Red Hat 6. When it comes for rel 7, it is to start from 1000. So 1 to 999 in rel 7, it is reserved for operating system, and starting from 1000 to 60,000, that's the default limitation which will be configured on a configuration file, that is /etc/login.defs. You can find those limitations. UID default limited UID and GIDs will be 60,000. So you can go and change if you want to. I'll show you how to do that. But by default, you don't do any changes for that. In rel 7, it starts from 1000, and as I said, system users will be from 1 to 999. That's on rel 7. Let's keep it as 1 to 999 and 999. 1000 plus, 1000 and above, and that same goes to 1000 and above. Now, when a user is created in an operating system, there will be some back-end process which will happen, and some of the privileges will be given or granted for those users. something like a home directory will be created, his login shell will be created, correct, his password will be created. So these are the background uh, password you need to create. But yeah, so some of the files will be updated in your operating system with these user IDs which are newly created. Now, what all those files will be updated with this user information when you create a user or a group newly in your operating system? The first, that is your slash home. Slash home is a folder which is default for user or for holding the user's home directory. And the login.defs is the file which has that configuration saying the default home directory has to be created for the newly created users under slash home. Now there is also another file which gets the updates when you create a new user, that is the slash var spool slash mail. Now this is a location where you will where the users newly created will get their emails. If you go into this location, you can see a file in the name of that user. Now, user related information, you can find it in slash etc slash password, and group related informations you can find in slash etc slash group. Now, to demonstrate the practicals, you will be getting a little bit more idea what we are talking about. Let's go into the practicals. su space hyphen to switch to root user account. Now currently I am logged into root. You guys know how to check, right? So I don't have to start everything back. Okay. Now I need to see how many users are there in my machine before I start creating any new users and groups. Now where I can find those information? The simple way to find how many users are there in this operating system, you can look into slash home, just list slash home, and try to see how many folders you get. There is one folder in the name of Yagnesh, which means Yagnesh users home directory. Now there is an alternative option for this. You can change that default settings and create your home directory somewhere else. Now then, where you will find those user information, as I said, the file, right, slash etc slash password will give information about users which are in the operating system. Now if you do vim slash etc slash password, you will see something like this. Now this is a file which consists of the user informations which are created and being there in your operating system, and information like username, that is root. This is the password, hidden password it's talking about. And 0 is the UID and 0 is the GID, and root is the full name, slash root is the home directory for root user account. Now we talked about this, right? So only system created or custom created users home directory will be created under slash home by default. For root, it has its own home directory under slash in the name root itself. That's a folder. And the login shell for root is slash bin slash bash. Now that's the bound again shell. There are different shells like bash, sh, CSH, and much more. Now we don't want to concentrate on those shells because we are not, we are not going to, do lessons on accessing those shells. Let's stick to the lessons. Now I want to show you some thing like this. So when you did ls on slash home, you got Yagnesh directory there, and which means that user Yagnesh is available, and this is what is information in this file looks like. Yagnesh is the username, and there's X means that's the hidden password for that user, and that's Yagnesh is the first user created in this operating system, and you can see that's the UID starting from 1000, and there is 1000 for a private group created for Yagnesh, that's 1000, and this is a full name, and default home directory is slash home slash Yagnesh, and this is his login shell. Now that's how you can find the user's information in this file, which are created in your operating system, those users. And apart from the custom users, you can notice that there are some users over here in this file, like something like an SSHD. SSHD is not a custom user created by the root user account. SSHD is a user account created by the service itself when you installed and configured. Now you can say I didn't install SSH. Oh yeah, you didn't install SSH, but you choose those applications to be installed when you installed this server with GUI platform. That's the time when these users got created, like Cronny, RPC, Apache, and GDM. There are so many users which are created by system itself. Now that's how you read information in this file. If you want to see what is a login shell for a user Yagnesh, you can come and check here. That's a bin bash. Let's go. Now I want to see information about my group. There is a file called /etc/group. Again, it's very simple. In this group, in this group file, you can see information about the group created in this operating system. Now you can see some similarities for the previous file which we just had a look, that was password. Now you may say that there are some similarities, like oh my god, there is Yagnesh name, which he was a user, so I can see that same thing on the group file also. Does that mean there is a group called Yagnesh? Absolutely right. When you create a new user, by default the system will create a private group for that user also, and that's why you see the repeated names like SSHD, RPC, and GDM, something like which I mentioned before. But there is an option to skip to create a private group for users when you create a new user. We will see those options in upcoming lesson. And this is the group Yagnesh, and Yagnesh is the primary member of this group, and also Yagnesh has a supplementary group which is Wheel. Now to talk about Wheel is a group which which gives the permissions for the group members of Wheel to act as administrator. That means to act as root by using sudo. Basically we call that as sudo configuration, but yeah, so to keep it simple, Wheel is a group which falls under the root group, or the members under wheel group will have root privileges so that they can run any commands using sudo. Now, if you want to make any user to act as an admin, so what you can do, you can add those users to the group wheel. And that's about the group file. And let's go and quickly check the one more file called shadow. Now, password is a file which gives user information, but you don't get informations like you don't see informations about actual password. You can see those password on a shadow file, but it will be encrypted. You cannot read this and it won't be in a readable format. Say my password for root is this, and my password for Yagnesh is this, and this is something which I'm going to talk about later. Okay, this is the password. Now, shadow is the file which has those information about the password, and those passwords will be in encrypted manner. Now, there is another file which gets updated with this user information, that is login.defs. Now, this is a file which gives a pretty much decent overview for the rules when a new user is created, what needs to be done. You can go through this file when you have a time, so it has good informations. So on line number 15, you can see that mail_dir. I talked about this previously, right? So when a user is created, you will also get a file in the name of that user under this directory called mail. So whenever a user is created, that will happen. So he will get his own file under the /var/spool/mail. And that rule is coming from this file, login.defs. And this is the user password aging. I mean, if you have a password and how long you can use that password. Okay, and that's what it was showing in the shadow file. If you look at here, right, 99999:7::. So this numbers indicates the property of the password aging for this particular user, which means this password will never expire. That's how by default the maximum password a password has to be changed for this password is 9,000 something like that, 99999. Minimum days is kept for 0, and that's the minimum length. And password warning is which is going to talk about now. Before 7 days, if there was a 90-day rule set for your password aging for user student, a student has to change his password after 90 days. Now, before 90 days, before that 7 days, a warning message will be keep on, you will see every time when you log in saying that the password will expire in few days. You have to change your password. Password will expire in 6 days. So that's the minimum password warning. That says the pass warning age. Okay, and these are the things which I talked about. UID, minimum UID starts from 1,000, and that ends for something like 60,000. And system accounts, system UID, GIDs, all those things. It is not a big file actually, but whenever you get that free time, please go and have a look at this file. It's pretty easy to understand what's there in that file. Now, these are the files which will be updated with those user information. And also there is one more file which is a folder, that is skill. Now under skill, you will have some files like bash underscore logout, profile, and rc. Now these are the files which will take care for your user environment. When a user logs into his account, and his shell will be loaded, which is bin bash, and all other environments which are associated for that user will be loaded together. And that's the function of these three files. Bash logout will take care of a logging out process, and bash profile will load all the related environments, and bash rc. All right, we will see an example what will happen if a user doesn't have these three files. Okay, so these are the major files which will get updated with these user information. Now going further, let's see how to create a user, and how to create a group, and how to add a user to a group, and how to modify user settings. Okay, right. Now the universal command for Linux users to create a user is user add, and you need to be a root, or you need to have that admin privileges to run as sudo yes. So user add space username. Let's create a username in student. Now I want to verify whether the user student was created, and I want to see what all the information he has. Now before doing that, we need to assign a password for user student. The command will be passwd space student. Let's give a simple password for this guy, and I'll call it as password itself. Now to recall, I want to see this user information. Now what I can do, the first thing before diving into anything is ls on home. You can see that student folder has been created. Now what else I can do? I can do cat, or I can just do grep student under /etc password. There you go. Student is a username, and that's the hidden password. You can see that the UID is set for 1001 and 1001. A private group is also created. Now you can see that this is the default home directory. Bin bash is the default shell. Now that's how you can create a user. Now there is another way, okay? Now I don't want this private group to be created whenever I create a new user. So that's kind of irritating for me to have a private group for every user. So what you can do, so let's go and look the user add -- help option. Every command has the option help. Now when you see option caps N, uppercase N, no user group, either you can use the caps N, or -no -user -group after the user add command, which will not create a group with the same name as the user. That's a private group. Now if I do user add -n, and if I say Mayur, okay, now if I do cat, or if I do grep Mayur on /etc/group, see, there is no information on Mayur, which means that a private group didn't create it. Did that create for student? Let's see that. There you go. Student separate private group has been created, or a primary group you can call. Now that's how you can avoid to create a private group when you create a new user. There are some few options here for you to change the default shell. Okay, now we created a user Mayur, but we didn't assign the password, right? Let's do changes shell login shell from bin bash to something else. Let's put a password. Okay, my password is done, and say I have already created that user. Now I want to change his login shell. When I do grep on Mayur, for example, on etc password, now you can see that is login shell is bin bash, but I want to change it to something else. Now how I can do that? You have a command called user mod. User mod is a command used to modify the settings for already created users. User mod, and if you don't know what option you have to use, you can use -- help, and there you go, -s, new login shell for the user account. So these options will be same, almost same, whatever you are looking for, user add and user mod. Okay, but the difference is user mod is used for already existing users, okay, to modify their settings. Going further, I said I want to change the login shell for user Mayur. Let's call it as sbin/no login space username Mayur. Now did that change actually? What we can do? We can do grep and confirm. Okay, so the user Mayur has a new login shell. That is no login, sbin/no login, which means that Mayur will be not able to log in this operating system by keeping the no login shell. Let's try that. su space -l. Let's switch the user from root to Mayur and see what happens. And that's what you see. This account is currently not available because it won't be able to log in. Now, if you want to change its login shell, you can just do that how we did previously, bin bash space Mayur. Alright, so that's how you can change modifications for any created users. Okay, now you can do that. Alright, now let's take another example. Now I want to change the default rule, which was saying like default home directories, right? Now let's say I will create a directory mkdir, and let's say I will call it as let's take any name, okay, test. Okay, test already exists. Let's take Mark. Okay, I'm going to create a user called Mark, and his home directory is not going to be /home/Mark. I want to change that default rule from /home/Mark to /Mark. Now, how you do that? User add -help. Okay, let's say I have already a directory. Let's try to use this. User add -d, that's /mark and let's create the username and the mark. Now the user actually got created, but you can see that warning, the home directory already exists, not copying any file from the skill directory. Okay, so why this happened? Because the directory was already created and it didn't copy some of the necessary files from skill directory. Now what happens? Before anything, let's go and grab mark under /etc/password. Can you see that this home directory is /mark, not /home/mark? Now let's try it. We didn't create a password for him. Let's go and quickly create a password. The password is done. Let's try to log in as Mark. Oh my god, I am seeing something unusual here, right? So when I tried to last login for Mayur, that didn't happen. SU space -L Mayur. See, that didn't happen. Which means Mayur is getting his login environment correctly. But when you try to log in as Mark, you're not getting that. See, you are seeing that bash prompt. Now, how to recover that? What you can do is, let's try to exit and go to root. Let's copy some files. Let's use arvf and /etc skill and dot bash. Let's copy all the files starting from bash to /mark. Okay, that's the home directory, right? You can see that 3 files copied, and we talked about these 3 files previously, and we know what each file will do. Now if you try to log in as Mark, there you go, you are getting that complete environment which was set for Mark. So that's how you can create a different home directory and copy your skills, the bash files to those user home directories, and have your own home directory, not under the default rule saying /home/mark or /usernames. That's how you create a user, and that's how you can change the login shell. And to change password, it's very simple. Okay, now let's say I want to change Mark passwords. If I'm user Mark, I can go and run password. What happens? Changing password for user Mark. Okay, that's the one option. So the user himself can go and run that command. The other way is, the root can change it. Now the custom user cannot go and change someone else's password because he doesn't have permissions on the operating system. Okay, very fine. Now that's how you can create the users. Now let's go and create the groups. Now before creating group, you can go, I think we talked about that. You can go and check informations on group. Okay, there you go. A private group has been created because I didn't use the -n option. Okay, all right. Let's create a group. Group add space. Let's call a group as Red Hat. Now group Red Hat has been added, and you can grab it from /etc/group, and the group ID is 1004. But this group Red Hat doesn't have any users binded to that group, right? There are no members. Let's create another group add Microsoft, and same thing goes for Microsoft. If you grab Microsoft, again Microsoft doesn't have any users binded to that group. Now the next step we need to do is how to bind an user to a group. User mod hyphen before user mod I would say id slash Mayur, which will give the IDs associated for the user Mayur. Now Mayur doesn't have a private group, and his group associated is users. That's the default group. When you don't create a private group, that's the default group the operating system will put the users to. Now Mayur is a member of users group, okay, and the group ID is 100, and Mayur's UID is 1002. You can do the same on student. You can see student has his own group, and he has his own UID. UID and GID look same. Now let's change that. Now let's add Mayur to in our Red Hat. Let's say -A and -G. -A is for appending, and -G is for the supplementary group name, and the group will be Red Hat, and user is Mayur. Now if you do Mayur ID Mayur, you can see two groups, right? So Mayur's has been added to another supplementary group, that is a secondary group, that is Red Hat. Now Mayur has two groups. The primary goes users, and that's the supplementary group or the secondary group, that is 1004 Red Hat. When you use -A, this is what will happen. Now what if I want to change the primary group itself for a user? You can use the command user mod space -g, that means a lowercase g, group name, and the username. Now this will change the primary group itself, and now Mayur doesn't have two groups, he has only one group. Now that's how you can play around. If you want to change the primary group itself, then you can use lowercase g. If you want to change it as a supplementary group, secondary group, you can use it as uppercase G. Right, now that's the one thing. Let's add the user mod -G Microsoft, right? That's the Microsoft to student. Now if you do ID on student, this is what you get. Now student didn't had two groups, he had only one group. The primary group was student. Now when I executed this command, what happened? It changed the primary group of the student. Right, so that's how you can create and add users to the groups, and change password, change the home directories. You can use the options -N to avoid creating a private group, something like that. Now going further, you know how to use find commands and all to find a username and all those kind of stuff. If you don't know which file to look up, you can just go and /, you can type name and let's say Yagnesh. So you are trying to search the user Yagnesh, and or the name Yagnesh inside the file system slash, you will see a lot of file scrolling and it's taking some time. So you can find the names like this also, right? You know how to use find command, so I don't want to recall that. I just wanted to show you how you can search for a user. Now, how to delete the user? Very quick. Now, I just want to show you some examples here. So I am going to delete a user student. Okay, now there is error here. Group student not removed because it is not the primary group of user student. Okay, now this means that the user student is being deleted, but the group student was not deleted actually, right? Now let's quickly take a look. Slash grep student slash etc group, it's still available. So because we changed the primary group of student, that is student, into Microsoft, right? Can we do grep on Microsoft? It will be there, right? Slash etc. See, when you assign a group as a primary group for a user, and when you delete that user, the primary group will also be deleted. So just make sure that if you have any groups and that group has connected to too many members, and you are going to delete that user in some point of day, just make sure that you change that primary group of a user. Now one more thing I would like to show here. If I do ID on Mayur, I see that Red Hat is the primary group and Mayur is still there in this account, and I want to delete a group. Now to delete a group, you can run the command group delete space group name Red Hat. Now you'll again see the error, but this time the user is also not removed and the group is also not. I am not deleting a user. First of all, I am trying to delete a group, cannot remove the primary group of the user Mayur. Why this is happening? Because the user is still available in the operating system. The group delete command is not allowed to delete the primary group of that user. That's it. Now if you want to delete this group at any cost, so what you can do, you can change the Mayur's primary group as any other group, okay, using user mod -g, okay, and put him into another group, and then you will be able to delete the Red Hat group. That's how you delete a primary group of a user. There is no other option for that. And these are the things which will cover up in the user management. And one last thing I think I would like to show, that is the full name, right? Okay, wait. I was talking about user add -help. Command. Okay. Now -c is an option which is used as a command, or you can call it as a full name or a complete name. Now let's say I have a user called Yagnesh and his full name is something like Yagnesh Kumar. Now you can do that, right? Let's do that. User add -c. Now let's call double code. Okay, I don't want to use that. Okay, let it be there. Salman Khan. Now what happened here? Okay, do grep on Salman on /etc/password, right? Yeah. See, in this section you will see something like this. That's the full name. -c is used for giving the comment section or full name. That's it. And why I use double quote? If you have space between the first name and last name, like any spaces, just make sure you use double quote. If you don't have any space, just don't bother for that double quotes. And one last thing is group mod is a command to modify the group. I don't see much options to modify with the group. You can use -n to change the group name, which is already there. I will call Red Hat as RHEL, and let's see. This is a new name, and this is the old name. If you do grep on rel on /etc/group, there you see, you can rename using group mod -n option. There are a few other options, but we don't need those options to work with group modifications. And that's about users and group creations. Now let's quickly look into the next part, that is file permissions. Okay. And one more thing we need to talk about is configuring sudoers in user management lesson. Now, sudoers is a configuration which allow the regular users or the custom users created by root user account to act as root itself. I mean, delegating the root privileges to the normal users. Something like the command which only root can be run. It can be that permission can be delegated to a normal user, so that the normal user can run those commands. To do this configuration, you have to do some settings with the file called /etc/sudoers. That's the file name. If you do ls-l and /etc/sudoers, so this is a file where you can use to delegate your root privileges for normal users. So let's go and take a look at this file, okay? And before taking a look at this file, so I want to introduce something called vsudo. So to edit this file, you have to use the tool called vsudo, not the regular text editors like Vim or Nano or Vi. Why? Because this is a file which has almost like control over the file system. So if you make any mistakes in this file and you save those files, it will not using the other editors, so the system will not report anything to the user once he saves the file, saying there are some mistakes in this file, syntax mistakes. So if you use vsudo to edit /etc sudoers, and there are some syntax errors after you editing this sudoers file, and you saved that file and exited to terminal, immediately the vsudo will report the user saying there are some syntax errors on the sudoers file. So that's one of the best advantage of using vsudo on sudoers file. Okay, so don't use vi nano or vim when editing sudoers file especially. Okay, now let's do a cat on /etc sudoers, and let's have a look at this file, or else we'll use sudo -f for file, which file you want to specify, that's /etc sudoers. Now by default, if you just do vsudo and hit enter, so it will open the same file. If you want to open another file with vsudo and you have some snap-in directories and snap-in configuration, you can use vsudo -f to open that file. Now, as I said, sudoers, you have a decent, description for this configuration file, which will tell you why this file is so important and what you can do with this configuration file. Sudoers allows particular users to run various commands as the root user without needing the root password also. There are two options when you configure sudoers, whether you want to enter the password or without password of roots. Examples are provided at the bottom of the file for collections of related commands, which can be then delegated out to particular users or groups. Now, this delegation or giving the root privileges for normal users can be implemented in multiple ways when you are configuring sudoers. But to stick with the lesson, you don't need to know all those kind of configurations. You can even configure sudoers file in such a way that a particular command can be assigned to a user, that is a normal user, to execute as root. Only that command. You can do all those configurations. You can do groups, sudoers group configurations. You can do command aliases configurations. If you go through this file whenever you get time, and if you want to learn more about sudoers, we will do that in some other lab sessions or some other lessons. But as for now, you need to know how to assign a regular user to act as the super user, that is the root. Now, what is the advantage of having this? Just like admin user groups. So assume that you want to give the root password for your friend who is going to use your system, or there is an administrator who is going to come and work in this particular server for 10 days. So you don't want to give out your original root password, right? What you can do, you can create an user who is going to act as the root user account, who has the permissions to run all the commands in the operating system. You can create an user and assign him to a particular group called wheel. We will talk about that in this lesson, so that you don't have to expose your root password for anybody else, correct? Now this file has very good examples for creating advanced sudoers configuration, but we are concentrating on only this particular line. So there are two things, okay? Allow people in the group wheel to run all commands. That is one. This is the group wheel. That's the person starting with the group. That's all commands in all system that this is the the commands actually. Now there is another alternative way, no password. You don't need to give password for every command that you are running, so you can skip that password by doing this. So we are not complicating things here, but I just wanted to give the information for you guys, so that there will be nothing, no confusions for you. I'm not going to make any changes in this file. I'll use an alternative way that will be easy for you guys to follow. And once I quit this file without any changes, as you can see, vsudo is reporting me saying that no changes has been made for the file sudo errors. Okay. Now the concept is, I have a user called Mayur, right? Let's switch to Mayur. And now let's try to change the password for Yagnesh, being as Mayur. Password Yagnesh. And now it's saying only root can specify a username, which means only root can run this command. Let's try to do sudo password Yagnesh. When you use sudo, that means the user Mayur is in the sudo configurations of this operating system. So thinking that is trying to run this as root. Okay. Now first it's asking me the password of Mayur. Let's give the password of Mayur. As soon as I do that, I see an error reported on the terminal saying Mayur is not in the sudo file. The incident will be reported, which means an email this report will be sent within an email format to the administrator. That's how the system tries to inform someone try to do something which suppose like which he shouldn't do it. Okay, something like a malicious activity is happening. That's what the system will think and try to report the root user. Okay, now I want to give Mayur the admin rights. That's the point, right? Let's do that. See, there you go. As I said, a new email has been shooted for the root user. Okay. Now I can do this in two ways. One is I can use user mod to add Mayur to the wheel group, and I can also do another way. Let's go and straight away edit this file as root /etc/group, and let's go into insert mode and put a comma there and type the username Mayur. It's simple, right? You can already see there is a user called Yagnesh who is acting as admin at the present. Now let's switch to Mayur and try to do the things. Okay, sudo. I have to specify sudo, right? Because I'm acting as admin. Password. Now it is asking the user's password here, Mayur. There you go. Now Mayur is allowed to run any command on this machine, so that he is acting as root now, because you added Mayur to the group called wheel. Okay, so basically Mayur can run anything on this operating system by using the sudo method. Right, so that's about the user management and group management lesson. Let's quickly switch to the next lesson, that is Linux file permissions. All right, just give me a quick second. Let's start that right away. All right, now file permissions is one of the key basic skills that every administrator who need to know who is going to work as Linux administrator. And working with permissions is very simple. How very simple the terminology of permission is. If you want to understand the next permissions, it's very easy, and also it's very easy in implementing those permissions. Now, permissions are in Linux is going to be on the file system. Now, this will be implemented on the files and folders, and files and folders will have permissions like read, write, and execute. Correct? Those are the permissions what we get: read, write, and execute. These are the three basic permissions what we have in Linux file system. Now, this permission can be implemented in couple of ways. So either you can implement this in a numerical way, and you can use the alphabetic way also. The command to implement the permissions will be chmod, which is change modification. All right. Now, in alphabetic, read will be R, and write will be W, and execute will be X. Now the same goes to not same actually. Now when it goes to numeric, read is 4, write is 2, and execute is 1. No, I'm sorry. Yep, it's in order right now. Read, write, execute, 4, 2, 1. Let's try to understand this in another way. And these permissions can be implemented for owner, which means the one who owns the file or a folder which he created. And the next is the group of the owner, where the owner belongs to that particular group, will also have permissions for this particular file or folder what he is creating, and others. So owner, group, and the members of group, excepting the users which are not members of the group, will be considered as others. Okay. Now let's do a simple thing here. Let's try to do ls -l on slash. So this is a 9-bit permissions. Okay. Let's try to check on this folder called soft. So the first 3 bits, the first bit, if it is starting from D, then it goes for directory. If there is nothing here, then there is just an hyphen, then it is a file. Okay. The first 3 bit, read, write, and execute, goes to user owner. I mean the owner, the one who has created this particular folder. And the folder has been created by the user root, and root has read, write, execute permissions. Now the next 3 bit goes to the group permissions where the owner belongs to. If the owner root belongs to the group root, okay, so by default this group root is none other than the root itself. So no one is there in that group. assume that if this group is called something like an accounts group, all the users in accounts group will have a read and execute permission if the root was a member of group account. Now this section goes to owner and this section goes to group. Now apart from that, the next 3 bit goes for the users who are there in this operating system. Okay, so we who are not the part of the group accounts are considered as others. So totally 9 bits of permissions. Okay, if you see D, then it is a directory. If you don't see anything in the starting bit like L, D or something like that, then just consider it as a regular file. Okay, it's not a folder or not a device also. Okay, so to make it even more simple, let's do this demonstration and in a way that you can understand it better. Alright, I have a few users already here. ls-l/home. I have Yagnesh, I have student. I don't have student, we have removed him. I have Mayur and Salman, right? Let's do something like this. Let's create, I think we already have some groups here. Let's do cat/etc not groups. We have a group called rel and we should have a group called Microsoft. Let's try to add Mayur to okay, he's already a member of rel, and let's try to add Salman to Microsoft. Okay, Salman and Yagnesh probably. Let's try to do that. User mod -a-cap-g. Let's do Microsoft, and let's call the user Salman here, and let's also call the user Yagnesh. Okay, student is also there. Let's keep it Yagnesh. Okay, typo mistake. Alright, now if I do my ID Mayur and ID Yagnesh and ID Salman. Okay, let's do it like this. Right, so user Mayur goes to the primary group, that is rel, and also he belongs to the group wheel, and Yagnesh belongs to group wheel and also Microsoft, and Salman goes to group Microsoft and he also has his private group called Salman. Alright, now let's create directories in the name of rel and let's create it under slash mkdir/rel mkdir/software. Now if you do ls-l on slash, you can see did I create software? Okay, let's create Microsoft. Now if you do ls-l on slash, you can see that Microsoft has been created, but currently Microsoft has the owner root and the group is also root. Now the same goes to rel directory. Root is the owner and root is the group currently. and the permission is okay. My mistake. I'm just trying to arrange things so that you can see and try to understand. All right. Now, RWX means the owner of this particular folder called Microsoft has the permission read, write, execute, right? So in numbers, it goes 4 plus 2 plus 1, that is 7. All right, now next, going for Microsoft. So the next 3-bit goes to the group, that is R minus, there is an hyphen X. So here we can see that write permission is missing. Now, if write permission is missing, what permission else the group have? Read and execute permission. And the same falls even for others. Read and execute permission. If you want to put that in a numerical way, so I would do that like this: 755/Microsoft. Isn't that easy? Very simple. Now, if you want to do that same in alphabetic way, you have to go for U plus RWX, G plus RX. Like this, you have to keep do, and others plus RX. So something like that you have to, if you are implementing in alphabetic, you have to do it like this. So numerical is easy, as for I have seen, even working in real time permissioning and all. Now that's how you can implement permissions. If you give 760, all right, let's say chmod 750/Microsoft. Now what this means, what that permission means, let's try to implement and see what it will happen. Chmod 750/Microsoft. Now if you do ls-l on slash, and let's do the same for rel also, rel directory. Now if you do ls-l on slash, now you can see some changes, right? It's starting with D because it's a directory, and the owner has complete permission, that's 7. Group has read and execute permission, that's 5, and others has nothing, because that's in the permission we specified 0, and that's why it doesn't have any permissions. That means only owner and the group owner belongs to, and the members of that group will have the permissions read and execute, and owner will have read, write and execute permission on this directory. Got it? Now let's go and change the owner. Let's change the Microsoft to Salman, right? Yeah. Let's chown is the command to change owners. Now the group name is the username will be Salman and Microsoft. Now the same goes to Mayur, rel. Now let's also change the group, that is chgrp, rel for /rel, and Microsoft for /Microsoft. Now let's do ls-l on slash. Now you can see there are some changes. Now, members of Microsoft group will have read and execute permission, and owner is Salman. He will ultimately have the all permissions, and also it goes to rel directory. That's the same thing. Users belonging to rel group will have read and execute permission, and Mayur will have that's the owner will have the complete permission. Now let's do a test. Let's try to log in as Salman, and let's try to change the directory to /Microsoft. Yeah, that's good. I'm able to change my directory. Can I go ahead and create a file called file1.txt? That is even awesome because I have the read and write permissions. I'm the owner here. Let's go and try to edit this file. If I do that, so hello world. Let's save this file. Yeah, so it's pretty simple, right? It's pretty straight. That owner has all permission and he can do everything whatever he wants. Now what about the group member? Now let's try to exit and try to log in as Yagnesh, and let's do cd to Microsoft and do ls. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm able to change my directory and I'm doing ls. So let's do can I view the contents, because I'm a member, right? I need to have the read permission. Straight, yep, I have the read permission. Can I go ahead and edit this file? Can you see that? It's a read-only file. You cannot go and edit that file. Alright, can I create a file here? File2.txt. Permission denied. So it's pretty straight that the members of the group Microsoft doesn't have write permissions, so that they cannot go and create or edit any files. But they will have read and execute permissions. They can go inside the directory and access the files in a read-only format. Now, I don't want to do the same thing on rel directory because you might have already got to know that. So let's do another test. Let's try to log in as Mayur. Now let's try to change the directory to Microsoft. What do you think? So Mayur will be able to change the directory to Microsoft, or he won't be able to change it? Permission denied, right? 750. Because Mayur is not a member of Microsoft group, Mayur will not be allowed to change the directory or access the resources, whatever, on /Microsoft. Now this is a very straightforward and simple basic permissions, and I believe it's very easy to understand. Now let's go and talk about an advanced permissions, right? Now, what all the special it's not advanced, we can call it as special permissions. That's the term what they use in Linux. What all the special permissions we have? We have access control list, we have a sticky bit, and then we have SUID and SGID. ACL, it's very clear that the name says access control list. Sticky bit is a special permission, and we'll see how to implement that, and also as well as SUID. Now let's go back to the demonstration here. Now, Mayur was not able to get or change the directory to Microsoft. Assume that now you need to give permission for Mayur so that he can go and access the the folder Microsoft. Now, how you can do that? So you cannot do that by chmod or the basic permissions. You need to implement something called access control list in this scenario, so that Mayur will be able to access everything inside the Microsoft folder, even though he is not a member of Microsoft group. I don't want to make Mayur a member of the group Microsoft only because he needs some access, but I want to give him access. So we will be using ACL permission for that. First, let's go and try to see what's the access control list for /Microsoft. The default access control list is talking about the file name is Microsoft, owner is Salman, group is Microsoft, user has this permission, group has that permission, and others have no permissions. Now, in our scenario, we need the user Mayur to be able to access the things in Microsoft directory. To do that, let's set ACL. The command will be set facl for name, and let's call user Mayur, and let's give him complete permission on the folder Microsoft. Easy. Now let's do the get facl. Get facl on Microsoft. Can you see that there is a new mask which has been done for the user Mayur, and we have given the permission read, write, execute. I could have done this ACL even with the owner of the Microsoft, that is Salman. So I'm just being in root, okay, because that's the owner, right? Salman is the owner. You can run facl even being the owner. Now let's go ahead and quickly see if Mayur can access. You can see that the mask permission was read, write, execute. Now su space -l Mayur, and cd software, sorry, Microsoft. There you go, right? And I had given him the permission to read, write, and execute, so he should have all permissions. Let's go and create a file here, vim file2.txt. You can create the file. Hello, this is Mayur. Simple. Can I delete the file? rm-rf file2.txt. Yep, you can even do deletions, you can create, you can read. He has all the permissions over this directory. Now you can now let's assume that there is another user in the group rel. Excuse me. Now my point is, you can not only give permission for a user, you can even allow an entire group in the ACL. Okay, assume that there was another user in the group rel. Now Mayur belongs to the group rel, correct? Now let's say let's try to see if we have student. Okay, it's not there. Okay, let's go and quickly add a user. You, oh my god. Okay. User add. Let's call him user 2. Let's give a password for him quickly. Password user 2. And also let's make him the member of rel. All right. Now, if I switch to user 2, and if I try to change the directory to Microsoft, I don't have permission because I'm a group member of rel. But let's assume that I wanted to give ACL for an entire group, not just for just an user. You can even do that. Let's quit from user 2 and set enforce -m. G stands for group, and the group is rel. And let's say I want to give read and execute permission for /Microsoft. I'm really sorry. I was doing set enforce instead of set FACL. Rel, and let's call Microsoft. Now if you do get FACL on /Microsoft, now we can see one more permission masking, that is group, and the group has read and execute permission. Okay, that's the group rel. Now if I switch to user 2 and cd/Microsoft, that's great. Now that's how you can allow or use access control list permissioning to allow a user or a group who is not a part of this folder to give the permissions to access that particular folder. Just give me a quick second here. All right, so the next special permission we are going to talk about is the sticky bit. Now, sticky bit is a special permission which allows the user allows an owner to protect the files which were created by that particular user from deletion by other users. I'm sorry guys, I had a little bit work, so yeah. Now sticky bit is a special permissions in Linux, so that will allows the owner to protect the files which were created by that user from deletion from other users. Now let's say I gave permission for read and write and execute for some user on that particular folder, and if he deletes that file and folder in future, okay, which were created by the owner. Now let's say here Salman is the owner, and he has created a file called file1.txt. Now he gave permission for Mayur for read, write and execute. Now for some mistake, okay, Mayur deleted the file file1.txt, which was created by the user Salman. Now Salman didn't, let's say Salman didn't like that. Okay, so what Salman is going to do, so he's going to bring the sticky bit permissions to secure his files being deleted when some other users are trying to delete other files. Let's see how to do that. Now to implement sticky bit, you need to run the chmod command 1750. Okay, and that's on Microsoft. Now when you do that, let's do ls-l on slash. You can see there are some difference here which other folders doesn't have. The plus indicates that this folder has access control list permissions. Correct? We did FACL, that is access control ACL permissions for group rel and user Mayur. If you see ls-l and if you see somewhere in the permissioning, if it has a plus, then you can consider it has ACL. And if you see something like a cap T, uppercase T, so that's sticky bit. That's indicating that that folder has a sticky bit permission created by the user. Now let's try to log in as Mayur and go for Microsoft and try to do RF on file1.txt, and there you can see permission denied. Even though that Mayur has read, write, execute permissions, he cannot delete that because there is a sticky bit permission. Only the owner can go and delete those files, not the other users, even though if they have complete permissions on the folder. Now that's about sticky bit. Now for SUID and chatter. Okay, so I'm going to use a concept here, and I'm going to talk about both the SUIDs and chatter permissions. Now assume that okay, let's assume that the microfile1.txt, the file which was created inside the folder Microsoft, been deleted by the root user. Let's do rm-rf on /Microsoft file1.txt. If you do ls-l on /Microsoft, nothing is there. Whatever you do, okay, so even the sticky bit permissions will not stop root user account to delete those files. Root will be able to go and delete the file, whatever file and folder you create on the operating system, because he is the ultimate guy, right? So he has all the permissions. Now let's say I want to create a folder which has some unique kind of permission where nobody should be able to delete any files which are in that folder, even including root. Now you can do that thing by using the command chatter, chattr, change attribute. Now change attribute is a command by default will be executed by root. Okay, it's not a file, or it's not a command which will be executed by all the users. Only root can run this command. But here Salman is the owner, so to implement this chatter, root has to allow Salman to execute the chatter command. Hope you guys are getting, right? So let's try to do that. su space -l. Okay, let's say Salman. Let's try to log in as Salman. And let's try to use chatter command, chattr, and let's say I want to implement immute -i and -r. I'll explain what is that. Don't worry. I just want to show whether the user Salman will be able to run chatter command or not. So it's saying operation not permitted because it's not a file, it's not a command that a regular user can run. Now what can be done here? Either two things can be done. One, I can go and allow user Salman in sudo is configuration so that he can run this command, only him. Now the other way is you can do a UID, set an ID, so that SUID and SCID, so that the user can go and run these commands. Now the one disadvantage you will have to accept when using set UID is that when you change or when you assign a set UID or set UID on an executable, it's not only going to change the permission for that user. Now let's say I wanted to give only for Salman, right? I did set UID. It's not only going to give permission for Salman. Instead, it's going to allow all the users to run chatter command. So what happens if there was an important command, something like a systemctl or a power off command? So if you set SUID on power off, so anybody can go and power off the server which is up and running, right? He will get those permissions. So that's the only disadvantage of UID. But we had to talk about the special permissions. And we will do it. So let's demonstrate that. All right, let's try to first exit. Let's try to see where this command is located. Where is chatter? All right, this is the file, right? User bin chatter. If you do ls-l on /user/bin/change attribute, you can see that it's an executable file, green. Okay, now the owner and group is root. There is one best example for this. Password. Now let's try to log in as user Salman. Okay, I want to show this. Can Salman change password of himself or on his account? Yes, he will be able to change password for his account. Now that's the magic of password. Password is a command which can be executed by every user to change their password anytime. Why? Because password has a special permission bit in it saying that user set UID. Okay, so you can see here owner permission being delegated. So who is the owner here? Root, right? So owner has read, write, execute permissions. So here UID is S is being present in owner's permissioning bit. If it goes and sits here, then it's going to be the group permissions, which is set GID. Now for this example, we are doing it for UID. So you can see that the password is an executable and which is being delegated for all the users in an operating system so that they can run the password command for their accounts. That's because of the set UID. Now you didn't see that in chatter, right? There is no S letter in that permissioning bits. Now that's why Salman was not able to execute chatter. Now let's go ahead and quickly change that thing. Let's do chmod. I have to be root first. Chmod. Now you can do this in two ways. Either you can implement it in alphabetical way, or you can do it in numerical way. If you want to do it in numeric, for set UID it will be 4755, because that's the original permission of this file. Don't change the original permission, okay? 4755, or you can just do U plus S for Microsoft, okay? Not Microsoft, that is user bin chatter. If you want to implement on group, then it can be chmod G plus S or 2755 on /user bin, or any file if you want. Let's go ahead and quickly recall the permission and see whether it's been changed or not. There you go. You can see that. Now it turned into red. The background of this chatter has been turned into red, saying that it has set UID. Now let's log into Salman, and let's see what is the default attribute we have. ls-attr-l. It doesn't have anything, right? Let's create a file here. Vim file 1.txt, and let's say hello world, and save this file. Okay, where did I do that? All right, I have to do it on Microsoft, correct? cd/Microsoft, or else you can just do ls-attr-l to list the attribute on Microsoft. There is nothing as of now. Let's go and create a file that is Microsoft on and let's call file 2.txt, and let's call it as hello world. And if you do that, so there is no special attribute has been set on this directory. Now let's quickly go and implement something. Change attribute plus I and plus R, -R recursively to the folder Microsoft. Now if you do ls-l on Microsoft, you can see that it's saying immutable, which means nobody can create or delete any files inside this folder, even including root and even including owner himself. So this is like a mute option, so you cannot do anything with this folder. You can just put a lock for some of your confidential files, and nobody should be able to access or something like that. Let's try that, correct? Let's go for root. I'm in root now. Let's try to do rm-rf on /Microsoft, and there is a file 2.txt. Permission denied for root. Can root go ahead and create a file here? Let's try to do a touch file 3.txt. Sorry, let's do on Microsoft file 3.txt. Permission denied. Let's change to Salman, and cd Microsoft, or let's do touch /Microsoft file 3.txt. Nope. So nobody can do anything with immutable option. When you have chatter command and implemented on immutable, you don't have any permissions to deal with that folder or a file. So you can say that this is, just a waste. So I just wanted to protect this folder from anyone doing any, catastrophic deletions or something like that. But right now, I am also not able to do anything with this. So how to, how to make something like, so no one should be able to delete anything in this folder, but they should be allowed to put something in this folder. That means they can create new folders or copy paste things, but they have to be removed with the permission of deletion. To do that, we have an option here. So, but before that, let's remove the immutable. Instead of plus, you have to do hyphen minus, I, and let's do recursively for slash Microsoft. And once that's done, you can do ch attribute plus a minus caps R, that is recursively on slash Microsoft. Now after that, let's try to do an ls attribute on slash Microsoft. Now it's saying hyphen a. Let's do this ls after hyphen l Microsoft. Now Microsoft folder has the new permission that's going to say for append only. Now append only means only users can keep adding things to this folder instead of deleting. I mean, if let's say root user created a file3.txt in this Microsoft folder, and now he thinks that that file doesn't needs to be in that folder and you want to delete it, so you won't be able to do it. Now that's the special magic of append only. Let's do that. I am in root. Let's create a let's create a file inside Microsoft in the name file3.txt. It's created, right? You can do ls-l on Microsoft. There are two files now, file 2 and file 3. Now root thinks that okay, that file was created by mistake, or that file doesn't require to be there in that folder. He wants to delete it. Slash Microsoft file3.txt. See, operation not permitted. You can only create, but you cannot delete things. So this will be a very good method to implement on things to dump. Okay, so you can use this as a very good trick on your real-time environments anywhere. But chatter is a very powerful or a special command where you can implement these kind of special permissions. Now that concludes the user management and group management and file permissions, which comes to basic permission and special permissions, that is ACL, sticky bit, SUID, and chatter. So that's all for this lesson, guys. So hope you can follow this video, and if you have any queries, you can get back to me, and meet you in the next video. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.